إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. ما بعد. Today is Saturday, 10th Jumada Athaniya, 1445, corresponding to December 23, 2023. Today, inshallah, we'll explain page 378 from Sourat Annaml, chapter 27. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وجحدوا بها واستيقنتها أنفسهم ظلما وعلوا. So, speaking about the people of Fir'aun and his cronies and his entourage, they belied the miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Musa alayhi salam. So when they saw the staff turn into a big snake and his hand radiating like a light bulb without it having any defect, they knew that this was not magic that they were used to, but this is actually a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But because they were arrogant and they did not want to lose their high worldly status among their people, they belied these miracles verbally, but in themselves they were convinced that these were real miracles from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the majority of this belief happens because of arrogance, takabbur, because people are too arrogant to accept the truth, not because they don't believe the truth. They are too arrogant to accept the truth, and that's the type of this belief that happened to Iblis. We seek refuge with Allah from him and from his soldiers. So they did that out of arrogance. So they knew deep in themselves that this was the truth from Allah. These miracles that Musa alayhi salam showed was the truth from Allah, but they denied it outwardly by their mouths, and they were stubborn and arrogant in not submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wrongfully and arrogantly means wrong in themselves, because this was the despicable manner to which they were accustomed to reject the truth. And they were arrogant because they were too proud to follow the truth, because they were the leaders of the world at the time. They were the leaders of the world at the time, and usually that pushes people to disbelieve in the Lord, except a few believers. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that the world was ruled by 4 kings. 2 of them were disbelievers and 2 of them were believers. The 2 disbelievers were Nebuchadnezzar, Bukhtar-Nasr, and Namrud, the king of Iraq, the one mentioned in the story with Ibrahim alayhi salam, mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam tara alladhi atahu Allahu al-mulk, the one that Allah has given a kingdom. So it's Namrud. So these are 2 disbelieving kings. The 2 believing kings were Dhul Qarnayn and Sulaiman alayhi salam, that we will see in this surah. فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. So see what was the end of the evildoers, those that deny the truth, the mischief makers. Meaning, see, O Muhammad, what were the consequences of the actions of Fir'aun and his entourage when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them and drowned every last one of them in a single morning. So they could never imagine perishing all in one single day. The point of this story is, beware, O you who disbelieve in Muhammad and deny the message that he has brought from his Lord, lest the same thing that befell Fir'aun and his entourage befall you also. But what is worse is that Muhammad is nobler and greater than Musa because he's the leader of mankind, and his proof is stronger than that of Musa because every single prophet that came with a miracle, his miracle was only witnessed by the people that existed at the time of that prophet. Every single miracle that was given to any prophet besides Muhammad the people that lived with the prophets, with those prophets, are the ones that saw the miracles. So for example, when we read in the Quran that Isa alayhi salam was able to bring back the dead with Allah's will, we did not see that. We read about it in the Quran, we believe it. The only people that saw that miracle were the people that were at the time of Isa alayhi salam. However, the proof on the miracle of Muhammad alayhi salam is witnessed by every single person that exists, and that is the Quran. That's the biggest miracle. It's not the only miracle, but it's the biggest miracle. It's the Quran. So the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Muhammad alayhi salam is witnessed by every single person, even though he did not live at the time of Muhammad alayhi salam. So this is a major thing that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time he sends messengers, he gives them miracles to prove their prophethood. Now, Muhammad ﷺ was given a proof of his prophethood, and that proof remains until today. And everyone is able to witness it. That's why when people read the Quran, without having any former convictions that, they will hate Islam, they will hate the truth, when they read the Quran, they know it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they believe. And this happened to many people that were sworn enemies of Islam and Muslims. They read the Quran so that they can write against the Muslims and against the Quran, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them, because these people were enemies of Islam because they had no knowledge about the beauty and the truth of Islam. But when they read the Quran, they witnessed the miracle with their own selves, and they become Muslims. So here back to Ibn Kathir says, and what is worse, that Muhammad is nobler and greater than Musa alayhi salam. And his proof, the Quran, is stronger than that of Musa alayhi salam, because the signs that Allah has given him, to Muhammad are combined with his presence and his character. In addition to the fact that previous prophets foretold his coming and took a covenant from the people that they would follow him if they should see him. May the best of blessings and peace from his Lord be upon him, because Muhammad is foretold in the previous scriptures, in the Torah, and also in the Bible. But of course, many among the people of the book hide the truth about the advent of Muhammad and they try to explain it as being someone else. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ عِلْمًا وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي فَضَّلَنَا عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّنْ عِبَادِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ وَقَالَ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ عُلِّمْنَا مَنطِقَ الطَّيْرِ وَأُوتِينَا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَضْلُ الْمُبِينُ وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها وقال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that indeed we have given knowledge to Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam, and they both said, all praise be to Allah, who has preferred us above many of his believing servants. Sulaiman alayhi salam was one of the children of Dawood alayhi salam. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ, and Sulaiman inherited prophethood from Dawood alayhi salam. As far as worldly possessions, Dawood alayhi salam had many other children, and usually all the children inherit from their father. But here Allah subhanahu is specifying prophethood. And he said, Sulaiman alayhi salam said, O mankind, we have been taught the language of birds, and we have been given from everything that a person needs in this dunya. This verily is an evident grace from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there were gathered before Sulaiman his hosts among the jinn and men and birds, and they were all set in battle order, marching forward. Until when they came to the valley of the ants, one of the ants said, O ants, enter your dwellings, lest Sulaiman and his armies should crush you, while they perceive not. So he, Sulaiman alayhi salam, heard her, understood her, and then he smiled, amused at her speech and the eloquence at which she addressed her cronies. And Sulaiman alayhi salam said, "My Lord, grant me the power and ability that I may be grateful for your favors which you have bestowed on me and on my parents, and that I may do righteous good deeds that would please you, O Allah, and admit me by your mercy among your righteous servants." Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, the organization of Sulaiman's troops, and his passage to the valley of the ants. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the great blessings and favors which He subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon two of His servants and prophets, Dawood alayhi salam and his son Sulaiman alayhi salam, and how they, Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, enjoyed happiness in this world and in the hereafter. Allah gave them power and authority in this world. They were prophets and kings at the same time, and Allah gave them the position of being prophets and messengers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ عِلْمًا وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي فَضَّلَنَا عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّنْ عِبَادِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And indeed we have knowledge, we gave knowledge to Dawood and Sulaiman, and they both said, all the praises and thanks be to Allah, who has preferred us above many of His believing servants. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ, and Sulaiman inherited from Dawood the kingship and prophethood. So he was the king after Dawood alayhi salam, and also he was prophet after Dawood alayhi salam. And this, of course, is the truth and is different from what the Jews, may Allah curse them, insulted Sulaiman with. The Jews don't admit that Sulaiman alayhi salam is a prophet. They say that he was a king, magician, because they believe the lies of shaitan. Sulaiman alayhi salam, during his reign, he gathered all the books of magic. He put them in a chest, and he put this chest under his throne so that no one can touch them, and anyone among the jinn who tried to come close to these books would burn. When Sulaiman alayhi salam died, shaitan came in the form of a man, telling the Jews, who were always eager to hear bad things about other people, especially prophets, listen to him when he lied and said that Sulaiman alayhi salam was not a prophet and was only able to control the jinn through the books of magic that he hid under the throne. And of course, he told them that he couldn't get close to these books because he would burn. He told them to take out these books, and in reality, they took out the books and they found magic in it, and they accused him of being a magician. May Allah curse be on them. They accused prophets of many evil things. They accused Sulaiman alayhi salam of magic. They accused Nuh alayhi salam of incest with his daughter and being drunk. And they even insulted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accused him of being cheap and being jealous. So these are the Jews. So I don't know who they are worshiping. How can you worship a Lord that has these qualities? So may Allah curse them. They are saying these bad things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His prophets. No wonder Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed them until the day of judgment. So Sulaiman alayhi salam, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. It's not Sulaiman who is a disbeliever. It is the disbelievers among the jinn kind, the shayateen, are the ones who disbelieved. So here Sulaiman alayhi salam was a prophet, was noble king, inherited the prophethood and the kingdom from his father Dawood alayhi salam. So what is meant here is not wealth, is not the inheritance of wealth, because if that were the case, Sulaiman would not have been singled out from among the sons of Dawood, because Dawood alayhi salam had 100 wives. Yes, Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam had 100 wives, and it's normal for a man to have so many wives, but of course, because we live in a world that is being controlled by the Christians, who invented monasticism, priesthood, the fact that a priest cannot get married, but of course, instead of that, they abuse boys that serve them. And that's probably the reason for the spread of this homosexuality in the West. And then all of a sudden, they're starting to say that people are created like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to create people in a state that they will be punished because of. So they invented this thing, and they invented this notion of marriage forever without the possibility of divorce. This is in their creed. But of course, they innovated all these things, and it's impossible for them to apply it, and that's why you see that they commit zina, and they commit homosexuality, they have divorce. So they invent things, they impose it on the world, but they themselves do not practice it. So he alayhi salatu wasalam said, نحن معاشر الأنبياء لا نورث ما تركناه فهو صدقة. We prophets cannot be inherited from. Whatever we leave of wealth behind us after we die is charity. So next Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وقال يا أيها الناس علمنا منطق الطير وأوتينا من كل شيء. And Sulaiman said, O mankind, who have been taught the language of birds, and we have been given from everything that a person wishes for in this world, as far as kingdom, knowledge, power. Here Sulaiman was speaking of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon him. So he, Sulaiman alayhi salam, was not like Qarun, who said that I am given this wealth because of knowledge that I learned, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that I deserve this knowledge. So Qarun said that, and Allah caused the earth to swallow him up, him and his treasures, so that the Jews don't think that Musa alayhi salam was jealous of Qarun and he made dua against him, so that Musa alayhi salam can take over his wealth. Because we're speaking about the Jews and their evil. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the land to swallow Qarun and his wealth. Here Sulaiman alayhi salam, being the king and the prophet that he was, he attributed all goodness that he had to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's how a believer should do. And this is a good dua that a person should make in his salat. ربي أوزعني أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. This is a good dua that a person can say. So here Sulaiman was speaking of the blessings that Allah bestowed upon him by giving him complete authority and power, whereby mankind, the jinn kind, and the birds were subjugated to him. He also knew the language of the birds and animals, which is something that had never been given to any other human being. That's why Sulaiman alayhi salam made a dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered him, and that is to give him a kingdom that no one else will have after him. So Sulaiman alayhi salam was even taught the language of animals that no other human being was able to be given. So as far as we know from Allah and His Messenger told us, Allah enabled Sulaiman to understand what the birds said to one another as they flew through the air, and what the different kinds of animals said. That's why Sulaiman alayhi salam said, we have been taught the language of birds, and we have been given from everything. That means everything that a king needs from this worldly benefits that a person seeks. This verily is an evident grace from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون. And they were gathered before Sulaiman his hosts of jinn, his soldiers among the jinn and men and birds, and they were all set in battle order. Meaning all of Sulaiman's troops of jinn, men and birds were gathered together, and he rode with them in a display of might and glory. As we said, he is one of 4 kings that controlled the whole world, with people marching behind him, and behind the people, jinn were marching behind the people, and the birds were flying above his head. When he was hot, the birds would shade him with their wings. فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. And they were all set in battle order. The first and the last of them were brought together so that none of them would step out of place. Mujahid said فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ means that officials were appointed to keep each group in order, and to keep the first and the last soldier together so that no one would step out of line, just as kings do nowadays. You know, the battle formations that we see, the military parades that we see, that's the kind of thing that this means. حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. Until when they came to the valley of the ants, meaning when Sulaiman, the soldiers and the army with him crossed the valley of the ants, one of the ants, when she saw this huge army coming, she told her fellow ants, "Oh ants, enter your dwellings, lest Sulaiman and his army should crush you while they perceive not, because you are small and it's difficult for them to avoid you." But Sulaiman alayhi salam heard the ant and understood what she said. So he smiled, amused at her speech, and said, "My Lord, grant me the power and ability that I may be grateful for your favors which you have bestowed on me and on my parents." That means Dawood alayhi salam, who was the father of Sulaiman alayhi salam, and that I may do righteous good deeds that will please you. So this is the way to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the bounties that He gives us, and that's to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So have taqwa of Allah so that perchance you may be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to thank Allah, have taqwa. This is how you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها وقال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه. Meaning, inspire me to give thanks to you, O Allah, for the blessings that you have bestowed upon me by teaching me to understand what the birds and animals say, and the blessings that you have bestowed upon my parents by making them Muslims who believe in you. This is actually one of the biggest bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can have on a person. And you know, we Muslims, subhanAllah, we have a treasure in us. You know what it's like to be a Muslim, especially in a world like the world we live in today? This in itself is enough of a bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, imagine 7 billion people in this world. Most of them slaves to dunya, slaves to other people like them, slaves to devils, slaves to their evil, vain desires. And you, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen and made as a Muslim and made you read the Quran, listen to the explanation of the Quran, listen to the durus, is giving you a Muslim wife, Muslim children. You know, we don't really thank Allah enough for these blessings. You know, if you want to know how big of a blessing this is, ask the people that were disbelievers and lived the mayhem and the hell of being a disbeliever with their family members. And after they became Muslim, they feel that they entered Jannah already. They feel they entered Jannah already, and it's true. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said, in this dunya there is a paradise, that if a person is unable to enter that paradise in this dunya, he will not be able to enter in the hereafter. That paradise is al-hayat tayyibah, the blessed life that Allah gives a believer. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whomever does good deeds while he is a believer, this condition, whether be he a male or a female, surely we shall make him live a blessed life in this dunya. So entering paradise of this dunya is worshiping Allah from your heart sincerely for Him, listening to the lessons of the scholars who are on the true path and callers to Allah who are on the true path, to read the Quran, to see yourself in places that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be. You will feel pleased and you will feel that you are content, and this contentment in this world is a prelude to the eternal contentment in paradise that we ask Allah to bestow on all of us. وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. So here we said Sulaiman alayhi salam thanked Allah for making him and his parents be Muslims that believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This in itself, as we said, is enough a bounty that we need to thank Allah for it. And that I may do righteous good deeds that will please you. This is the way to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means deeds that you love, which will earn you pleasure. Because when Allah gives you something that pleases you, then you have to thank Allah by doing things that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in return, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur. He is thankful to his slaves, even though he does not need his slaves, but Allah likes for his slaves to be believers and do good deeds. So when you thank Allah by doing good deeds, Allah gives you more of bounties, and Allah gives you happier in this world. وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ, and admit me by your mercy among your righteous servants. Meaning, when you cause me to die, then join me with the righteous among your servants and the higher companion among your close friends. Because even though Sulaiman alayhi salam ruled the whole world, he knew that there's going to come a time when he's going to die. And that's when he's going to need Allah's mercy the most. And that's why he's asking Allah to join him with the righteous among his servants in the hereafter. بأوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك bestowed on me and my parents, and that I may do righteous good deeds that would please you, and admit me by your mercy among your righteous servants. وتفقد الطير فقال ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين لأعذبنه عذابا شديدا أو لأذبحنه أو ليأتيني بسلطان مبين. So Sulaiman alayhi salam inspected the birds among his soldiers and said, what is the matter that I do not see the hoopoe bird? Or is he among the absentees without excuse? I will surely punish him with a severe torment or slaughter him unless he brings me a clear reason. The absence of the hoopoe bird. Allah tells us that Sulaiman alayhi salam inspected the birds. Mujahid, Sa'id bin Jubayr, and others narrated from Ibn Abbas and others that the hoopoe was an expert who used to show Sulaiman alayhi salam where the water was if he was out in open land and needed water. In other words, the birds, the hoopoe bird, would be able to look for water for Sulaiman alayhi salam in the various strata of the earth, just as a man looks at things on the surface of the earth. So the bird would be able to see water deep under the earth. This is a quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this animal, the same way that human beings can make tools and or robots that can help them do that. So there's, if human beings can do it, then why is it difficult for Allah to do? Of course, nothing is difficult for Allah to do. So the hoopoe bird would know just how far below the surface the water was. And actually, this is something that even some human beings have. This is quality that has given some people. This without using jinn or anything. Some people, they just, they put water in their mouths and then they put sticks in their hands. This, of course, the people, they use the jinn for this, but many people actually, Allah has given them this quality. I know a person that's actually on the true path, and he's able to do that. And he tells you approximately how many meters below. Of course, it's not knowing the unseen. It's a sensation. It's something that you feel. Other people, they have different feelings. Sometimes, people say I have a premonition, or your heart starts feeling like you're sad, and because something happened somewhere else to someone that you love and you don't know at the time. So these are things of the unseen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls, and we can't just judge everything but what we touch. Okay, so here back to this thing here, the hoopoe bird was able to see where the places where the water was under the surface, and how many meters, how deep the water was. So when the hoopoe bird showed Sulaiman alayhi salam where the water was, Sulaiman would command the jinn to dig in that place until they brought water from the depths of the earth. So here, of course, the jinn don't know the unseen. Otherwise, Sulaiman alayhi salam would have used them to find the water. So the hoopoe bird was given this quality by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I'm not sure if it's something that's specific to that hoopoe bird, or all of the hoopoe birds have the same quality. To be honest with you, I don't have any proof on that. Actually, I need to research to see if one of the scholars have written about this subject. But that hoopoe bird with Sulaiman alayhi salam had this quality. Do all hoopoe birds have this quality? Allah knows best. I don't know. I need to do some research. So one day Sulaiman went to some open land and checked on the birds. In other words, he needed the services of this hoopoe bird, but the bird was not there. So he was absent from service without excuse. Just like today, the army, if you are absent without excuse, they say that you deserted the army and then they put you in jail. فقال ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين. So Sulaiman alayhi salam said, what is the matter that I do not see the hoopoe bird, or is he among the absentees? Now that we need him, he's not here. One day Abdullah bin Abbas told a similar story, and among the people was a man from the Khawarij whose name was Nafi' bin al-Azraq, who often used to raise objections to Ibn Abbas. So he said to him, stop, O Ibn Abbas, you will be defeated in an argument today. Ibn Abbas said, why? Nafi' said, you are telling us that the hoopoe bird can see water beneath the ground, but any boy can put seed in a trap, and the hoopoe bird will come and take the seed so the boy can catch him in the trap. In other words, you tell us this hoopoe bird can see you tell us that the hoopoe bird can see water underground, but he cannot even see the trap that the boy put for him. So Ibn Abbas said, if it was not for the fact that this man, that means this Khariji, would go and tell others that he had defeated Abbas in argument, I would not even answer this crazy argument. But then he said to Naf, he explained to him, he said, woe to you. When the decree of Allah strikes a person, his eyes become blind and he loses all caution. In other words, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees for this hoopoe bird to be caught by this boy, then the eyes of the hoopoe bird will become blind and he loses all caution, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for the boy to catch this hoopoe bird. By the way, the hoopoe bird, we are forbidden as Muslims to eat the hoopoe bird or kill him. So this is a very important thing. Now, of course, in some countries, they use the blood of the hoopoe bird to cure asthma. It's not a cure. It's actually it's haram, because drinking blood is haram and killing the hoopoe bird is haram. But of course, if you want shaitan to work with you, you have to do something that's haram. So many ignorant people, they do this, and it's haram to kill a hoopoe bird. The Prophet ﷺ said, for animals we are not allowed to kill, of course, unless they invade you in your own home. For example, the hoopoe bird is one of them. The ants, the ants, also the bees. All right, so we got the hoopoe bird, the bees, the ants, and what's the fourth animal that we are not allowed to kill? Okay, it doesn't come to me now, but I will try. But in any event, to the knowledge of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Sulaiman by plucking his feathers because he was not there when the king needed him. Abdullah bin Shaddad said by plucking his feathers and exposing him to the sun. This is also the view of more than one of the Salaf, that it means plucking his feathers and leaving him exposed to be eaten by ants for deserting his position, or I shall slaughter him, meaning killing him. أو لا يأتيني مبين, or he should bring me a reason, a valid excuse for not being there. The fourth animal is you are forbidden from eating as well. So Sufyan bin Uyayna and Abdullah bin Shaddad said, when the hoopoe bird came back, the other bird said to him, what kept you from your position? Sulaiman has vowed to shed your blood. The hoopoe said, did he make any exception? In other words, is he going to shed my blood regardless, or did he make an exception? So they said, yes. He said, I will surely punish him with a severe torment or slaughter him unless he brings me a clear reason. The hoopoe said, then I am saved, because he had brought Sulaiman alayhi salam clear proof, and he knew that he would not be slaughtered or punished. So the hoopoe bird knew that he would be saved. So this is it for today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us the beneficial knowledge. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from all tribulations. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and our families and our provisions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring back the Muslims to the true path, especially the youth among them and the women among them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring back Islam and the Khilafah to this world in the nearest delays. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to our brothers, the Mujahideen in Palestine, over the Jews and all the Christians and hypocrites that help them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy all of the Jews and the hypocrites and the disbelievers that help them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the might of the Jews among themselves and to make them kill each other like happened to their forefathers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cleanse the blessed land of Palestine from the filth of the Jews and to destroy them and to push them away from the blessed land. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring back the Khilafah to the blessed land of Palestine, as He subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised us through the tongue of His Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Finally, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the best day for our existence, the day that we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to gather us with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu in the highest paradise for Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan, brothers.